Good afternoon and welcome. We are delighted to have you here for a press conference by the Secretary General of the United Nations, who's just wrapping up his trip to Lebanon. Joining him on the podium is our Special Coordinator for Lebanon, Ms. Janine Hennis-Plaschbart, and Lieutenant General Aroldo Lazzaro, who is the Force Commander for the UN Peacekeeping Force, UNIFIL. The Secretary General will make some opening remarks and then we'll take some questions. Sir, please.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, I am concluding a very meaningful and productive visit to Lebanon. I have been profoundly moved by all I saw and heard. Throughout my time here, I have sensed an atmosphere of opportunity. After one of the most difficult years in generations, Lebanon is on the cusp of a more hopeful future. A window is opened, paving the way for a new era of institutional stability, a state fully able to protect its citizens, and a system that will allow the tremendous potential of the Lebanese people to flourish. We must do all we can to make this vision a reality. That was the focus of my meetings with President Joseph Aoun, caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati, Speaker of Parliament Nabil Berri, Prime Minister-designate Nawaf Salam, and caretaker Foreign Minister Abdallah Bou Abid. With the head of state and government once formed, Lebanon will be placed to address the needs of its people and extend state authority throughout its territory. Of course, big challenges lie ahead. During my visit in the south yesterday, I saw firsthand the dramatic human impact and the utter level of destruction caused by the conflict. Hundreds of thousands of displaced residents have returned to southern Lebanon, southern Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, and elsewhere. And many have found their homes and communities in ruin. The rebuilding needs are great, but they are not insurmountable. Working hand in hand with Lebanese authorities and partners, the United Nations will intensify our support for recovery and reconstruction across Lebanon. Many Israelis were also victims, with their lives upended by the conflict. I fervently hope that from both sides people will be soon able to return to the areas where they lived and resume their daily lives. Ladies and gentlemen, the cessation of hostilities is fragile, but it is holding. I call on both parties and all those with influence to ensure commitments are realized. The newly established mechanism should be used to address outstanding issues. I note that the Israel Defense Forces have commenced their phased withdrawal from Lebanese territory, with the Lebanese armed forces deploying in greater numbers south of the Litani River. But we see continued demolitions of buildings and infrastructure in southern Lebanon, as well as fatal airstrikes. On the other hand, in the past 40 days alone, UNIFIL peacekeepers uncovered over 100 unguarded weapons and ammunition caches, promptly sharing their locations with the Lebanese armed forces. Resolution 1701 is clear. The area between the Blue Line and Litani River must be free of all armed personnel, assets and weapons other than those of the government of Lebanon and UNIFIL. And I had the opportunity to visit with UNIFIL troops yesterday who are undertaking a vital mission. They carried out over 730 missions in close cooperation with the Lebanese armed forces, facilitating their redeployment to more than 50 positions. UNIFIL has also facilitated 39 humanitarian missions in coordination with the Lebanese Armed Forces, the Lebanese Red Cross, various UN entities and NGOs. Our peacekeepers are currently strengthening their capacities and adapting their conduct of operation within their mandates.
Reflector.
Despite continued challenges, critical milestones can be met with sufficient political will. Safety, security and freedom of movement of UNIFIL should be fully guaranteed. The parties have renewed their commitment to Resolution 1701 as the framework for lasting peace. As I said, it is now essential to see the withdrawal of the Israel Defense Forces from Lebanese territory and the simultaneous deployment of the Lebanese armed forces across southern Lebanon in the agreed time frame. Moreover, Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity must be respected, and the Lebanese state must have full control of weapons through Lebanese territory. This is a central tenet of Resolution 1701. It is therefore equally important to also look beyond the 60-day period in order to begin the work to, this time around, fully implement Resolution 1701 in all its dimensions. I encourage the international community to strengthen their support to the Lebanese armed forces. The United Nations, including through the UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon and UNIFIL, is committed to supporting the parties uphold their obligations under Resolution 1701 and ensuring that the cessation of hostilities holds. This would lay a platform for the full implementation of the resolution and its ultimate goal, a permanent ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel. I want once again salute the women and men of UNIFIL who remained in position at great risk to their safety and security. And I also extend my profound thanks to the troop contributing countries. They were crucial in helping the parties find their way towards peace. I also want to thank and recognize the UN staff in Lebanon for their courage and resilience and continuing to deliver at great personal risk under very difficult circumstances. Several made the ultimate sacrifice and many lost all they had. Ladies and gentlemen, finally the situation in the region is evolving rapidly with a deal on a ceasefire and the release of hostages in Gaza, as well as developments in neighboring Syria. I want to commend the government and people of Lebanon for their long-standing solidarity in hosting a large number of Syrian and Palestinian refugees. It is that spirit of solidarity that the world must show to the people of Lebanon. The road ahead is filled with promise but also great tests, and these include reforms and efforts for greater accountability. As the Lebanese people travel this road together, the United Nations is proud to stand with you. Let's make the most of this atmosphere of opportunity, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take some questions. Mr. Mohammed Farhat, please. Right here.
Good evening, Mr. Secretary General. Mohammed Farhat, Al Jadid TV, Lebanon. Throughout the past month, we were seeing the Israeli attacks on the UN positions and peacekeepers throughout southern Lebanon. We will see any international movement to condemn Israel for these attacks. And throughout the past 55 days or 53 days, Israel was violating the ceasefire agreement that happened throughout South Lebanon and also in some places, not only on the borders. How can you describe these violations? Thank you.
I visited yesterday one of the installations of the UNIFIL that had been shot at, that had also been victim of different other forms of attack that destroyed part of their walls. And all those attacks to UNIFIL were strongly condemned by ourselves and by the international community. It is absolutely essential to safeguard the security of UNIFIL personnel. On the other hand, all other violations of the agreement that was established for the cessation of hostilities, all those violations must also be clearly condemned.
Thank you. Yes, Janet, please, right here.
ديانا سكايني من صحيفة النهار. حضرة الأمين العام.
For 1 second.
Just a moment.
Thank you.
Should be on.
I should do it in Arabic for our platform. حضرة الأمين العام.
The problem is the sound. It's the level of the sound. It goes too loud. I want loud. No, this is the...
تحكي انجليزي.
Just a moment. Do you mind?
ديانا سكايني من صحيفة النهار. حضرة الأمين العام كما ذكرتم لبنان يشهد.
I'm not able to...
Yeah, so I will go in English.
I will ask you to
Yeah, no
do
problem.
it in Arabic, and someone will translate, and then I will respond in English.
Okay, no problem. لبنان يشهد مرحلة مبشرة كما ذكرتم مع انتخاب رئيس للجمهورية وتكليف رئيس حكومة، ولكن أيضا هناك تعقيدات كثيرة. نحن على بعد أيام قليلة من انتهاء مهلة 60 يوما للانسحاب الإسرائيلي من جنوب لبنان. ما هي ضمانات؟ هل هناك ضمانات للانسحاب الإسرائيلي من جنوب لبنان؟ ومن هذه التعقيدات أيضا هناك فهم مختلف للأطراف للقرار 1701. حزب الله يتحدث عن بدء استعادة قوته العسكرية. هناك خروقات إسرائيلية مستمرة. إذا ما هي الضمانة لاستتباب هذا الوضع؟ ولا يمكنني أن أفوت هذه الفرصة بالتوجه إلى أمين العام للأمم المتحدة، ونحن على مشارف بدء تنفيذ قرار وقف إطلاق النار في غزة من دون سؤالك عن اليوم التالي في غزة من الناحية الإنسانية، ونحن نشهد هذه المأساة المهولة وندرك جيدا مواقفك منها. شكرا.
I start with the second question, Your Excellency, Secretary General. Soon the deal on a ceasefire in Gaza will be in effect. And I would like to ask you about the next day. What will happen? The humanitarian disaster is going on, and we would like to know what you think about it. This was the second question. As for the first question,
First, Gaza. Second.
the second question, are there any guarantees for the ceasefire in Lebanon to hold? There are complications, there are different interpretations of Resolution 1701. Hezbollah says that it's recovering its strength. What are the guarantees?
First, I must say that I've been, since the first day, asking for a ceasefire in Gaza and for the unconditional release of the hostages and for open access for humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza. It is my strong belief that tomorrow we will start with these three objectives. That there will be no more fighting, that humanitarian aid will start to have a facilitated access to Gaza, and that the hostages will start to be released. The second question. I am totally convinced that the agreement that was established will be respected.
Wow.
I am totally convinced that the Israeli forces will leave Lebanon as foreseen, and that the Lebanese armed forces, with the support of UNIFIL, will assume full control of the area south of the Litani River. And I do not see any reason for this not to happen. And the best guarantee is that I'm entirely convinced that the whole of the international community would not forgive any violation of this agreement. Everybody wants peace in Lebanon, and nobody would accept the war to start today.
Carmen, Al Jazeera.
Carmen Al Jazeera. So I have two questions. The first one, did you ever receive any information or have you been informed from the Israelis that the ceasefire will happen on the 26th at 4 a.m. They will withdraw fully from the south of Lebanon? Did they inform you officially about that? The second question is related to the UNRWA. You know, after the Israeli legislations and decisions related to this organization, what would be the fate of this organization and how it will impact all the Palestinians benefiting from this, the services of this organization? Thank you.
First of all, I have not received directly any information about Israel, but Israel has signed agreements, and the agreements are clear commitments that must be respected. Second, UNRWA will, in all circumstances, continue to operate in Lebanon, in Jordan, and in Syria. And it is not yet entirely clear what is the interpretation of the legislation that was adopted. For the moment, UNRWA is still operating in Gaza and in the West Bank. And we do not intend to stop our operations unless they are stopped by Israel.
أحمد سنجاب قناة القاهرة الإخبارية. السؤال الأول متعلق بقوة الأمم المتحدة المؤقتة في لبنان، هل سيكون هناك زيادة لعدد قوة الأمم المتحدة خلال الفترة المقبلة وخصوصا في للحفاظ على الأمن أو الاستقرار أو في لوقف إطلاق النار؟ ده الجزئية الأولى. الجزئية الثانية متعلقة بقطاع غزة أيضا، لو في آلية معينة للأمم المتحدة لإدخال المساعدات بمجرد وقف إطلاق النار، هل هناك آلية محددة للتنسيق في هذا الأمر؟ شكرا.
I have two questions. The first one is related to UNIFIL. Will there be any increase in the troops number in order to safeguard the security and safety of Lebanon and ensure that the ceasefire is respected?
There is no intention to increase the number of troops. There is yes an intention to increase the capabilities of the force. The problem is not the number of soldiers, the problem is the kind of equipment that is essential from the point of view of the monitoring that UNIFIL must do. So what is planned is an increase of capabilities and also an adaptation of the action of UNIFIL to make it even more effective in the exercise of its mandate.
The second question is about Gaza Strip. Is there any mechanism to ensure that the humanitarian assistance will be delivered once the ceasefire is agreed upon? will there be any mechanism to ensure that the humanitarian aid will be allowed into Gaza?
Into Gaza?
Gaza, yes.
Gaza. The agreement is clear. There won't be any impediments by Israel for humanitarian aid to enter in Gaza. That doesn't mean that it is easy, the distribution of humanitarian aid in Gaza. We have gangs looting systematically the convoy. We have other obstacles that have to do with the total degradation of Gaza and its infrastructure. We have a limited number of trucks at the present moment in Gaza, so a lot of actions are necessary in order to make the distribution fully effective, distribution by the UN, distribution by its partners, distribution by the private sector, and distribution by other initiatives. It is clear that there is an obligation by Israel of not creating any obstacles. It is clear that the situation in Gaza is still extremely complex and a lot of difficulties still remain for an effective distribution.
Thank you. Mohammed Bouri.
محمد برج الفائق 24 حضرة الأمين العام تحدثتم في كلمتكم أمس المنقوع اليونيفيل عن أن وجود مسلحين وأصول وأسلحة غير تابعة للحكومة اللبنانية أو اليونيفيل بين الحقف الأزرق ونهر الليطاني إنما يشكل انتهاكا صارخا لقرار 1701. هل تقصد جنوب الليطاني فقط أم شمال الليطاني؟ وهل نزع السلاح موجود بالحكومة اللبنانية أم باليونيفيل؟ شكرا.
Mr. Secretary General, yesterday you mentioned that weapons caches were found and that there were military equipment which are not for UNIFIL or the government. And you also mentioned that the presence of such equipment and material is a violation of Resolution 1701, especially between the blue line and South Litani. So is it only about South Litani or also North Litani?
What we are discussing now in this operation that we are making is an operation that takes place in the southern part of Lebanon. What we are doing now is that. But the principle that we have affirmed as an essential principle is that the monopoly of the use of force within a state must belong to the government of the state and to the army of the state. And that is the principle that should be applied everywhere.
The other question, the disarmament of troops that are not related to the government, is it the government's affair or UNIFIL's affair?
UNIFIL informs the Lebanese army of the existence of this arm, and the Lebanese army makes the collection of these equipment.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What is working? What